Hello. Hello. I'm Nana Sal. Here's a story about some friends I'm hoping to meet one day. A long, long time ago in the future, two human almosts bumped into each other when they were out for a walk. "Hey," said Loz. "Hey," said LittleJack. They started to talk, and Loz showed LittleJack a collection of shells. LittleJack showed Loz a collection of acorns. Next time they went out for a walk, LittleJack shouted, "Hey!" even though they hadn't bumped into each other. And Loz shouted, "Hey!" LittleJack gave Loz the very best acorn, and Loz gave LittleJack the most clean and sea-smelling shell. Every day when they went out for a walk, LittleJack would see Loz and shout, "Hey!" And Loz would see LittleJack and shout, "Hey!" Then they would swap acorns and shells. One day, LittleJack gave Loz a whole bag of shiny acorns, and Loz gave LittleJack a shell that was huge, as wide as an oak tree and as heavy as a sea cow. LittleJack smiled and said, "Hey!" wrapping arms around it to carry it. The next day, Loz set out on a walk as usual, but didn't see LittleJack. No one said "Hey!" and no one gave anyone a shell or an acorn. Where could LittleJack be? LittleJack set out the next day and said, "Hey!" upon seeing Loz. But Loz asked, "Where were you?" "Well," said LittleJack, "I got so tired carrying the big shell home. It was as wide as an oak tree and as heavy as a sea cow, and I live up the hill." "Up the hill?" replied Loz. "You live up the hill?" "Yes," said LittleJack, "up at the top where the old oak tree grows." "I've never been up there," said Loz. "It's a long way from the sea." "Yes," said LittleJack, "it's a long way from the sea, but it's where the old oak tree grows, and I can climb up the tree and see the sea from there." After that, LittleJack and Loz went back to walking and to saying "Hey!" and to swapping acorns and shells. And they continued in this way for many days and weeks, perhaps even years. One day, Loz was thinking about the day that LittleJack didn't come and say "Hey!" and all that LittleJack had said about living up the hill by the old oak tree, and how carrying the shell had been so tiring because of living up the hill. That day, Loz took a different walking route, going straight up the hill. Halfway up, Loz saw LittleJack, who was halfway down. "Hey!" Loz said. "Hey!" said LittleJack. "Do you want to come and see the sea?" So it was that Loz climbed the hill with LittleJack, who, it turned out, lived at the very top of the hill under the old oak tree. Under the old oak tree, LittleJack had placed the huge shell, wide as an oak tree, though not quite as wide as this one, and heavy like a sea cow, had covered it in mossy grass to form a cosy seat and shelter. Loz felt pleased. They climbed up the old oak tree and sat for a long time looking at the faraway sea. After that day, Loz often climbed the hill and then climbed the old oak tree and looked down at the sea with LittleJack. One day, Loz said to LittleJack, "Would you like to visit me at the bottom of the hill?" And LittleJack said yes. So together, they walked all the way down the hill. "Here we are," said Loz when they got to the very bottom. There, amongst the rocks, the big rocks and the little rocks, and the stony area in front of the sea, was a scraggly row of little oak trees. "Hey!" said Littlejack, realising that Loz must have planted some of the acorns and they'd started to grow. "Loz," said Littlejack, "I love that you've planted the acorns I gave you. I love the shells you have given me. Will you come up the hill and be together with me?" And so it was that Loz moved up the hill to be together with Littlejack, and they lived happily ever. Well, they were happy being together, but Loz said, "I like the sea from here, but I can't collect shells." "No," said Littlejack, "I guess not." Loz so missed collecting shells and the scraggly row of little oak trees. And Littlejack so missed the little row of oak trees grown with the acorns from the top of the hill and Loz's happy "Hey!" One day Loz said, "Will you come down the hill and be together with me?" And Littlejack said yes. And so it was that Littlejack moved down the hill to be together with Loz. And they lived happily ever. Well, they were happy being together, but Littlejack said, "I like the little trees and the big wet sea with the shells, but I miss the view from the big oak tree." And Loz so missed the big shell seat and Littlejack's happy "Hey!" For a long time they didn't know what to do. They went up the hill and sat in the old oak tree, and they went down the hill and walked by the sea. One day, they were talking about walking up the hill and walking down the hill, and they met some friends called Riz and Looskel. They talked about how Littlejack lived at the top of the hill and Loz lived at the bottom of the hill, and Riz said, "I live halfway up the hill." And Looskel said, "I live halfway down the hill." They talked about it for a long time, and eventually Loz said to Littlejack, "I would like to be together with you halfway up the hill." And Littlejack said to Loz, "I would like to be with you halfway down the hill." And so it was that Littlejack and Loz were together halfway up the hill and halfway down the hill. Sometimes they walked down the hill to collect shells and see little oak trees grow into big oak trees. Sometimes they walked up to the top of the hill and climbed the big old oak tree, or sat in the huge shell as wide as an oak tree and as heavy as a sea cow. They were together. There are more stories about some friends I'm hoping to meet one day. Listen again next time, or get a grown-up to contact me at my email address. You could also buy Mari from Nowhere, a book by Nana Sal. That's me, with all the same characters.